Hey everybody, John Pollock here alongside Jimmy Korderas. As always, we are going through the WWE No Mercy event from Sunday night at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California, and built around two matches, although coming out of it, I feel that it was maybe two other matches that I think a lot of people were talking about. That I think the Raw tag title match, I think most expected it to be good. I thought it was above expectations, and something that I didn't go in with much, but thought was really strong was the women's match.
Absolutely. You mentioned, again, your expectations are such going in, and I expected big things from the two matches that were the most heavily focused on matches. And it's nice to have a couple of matches that actually come out and surprise people. Yeah,
so this was a weird show in the sense that it had its ups and downs throughout the show, but let's start off with the main event with Brock Lesnar and Braun Strowman. They went just under 9 minutes, ends with an F5. I don't feel the audience was really into this match. I think they peaked with John Cena and Roman Reigns, and this was one I had huge expectations for. I thought that going in, this was a match that could have headlined WrestleMania if they had so chosen, but this, for many reasons, to me it didn't click, and it wasn't anywhere near the level of what you got out of the four-way at SummerSlam, and I was disappointed with this one.
I was too. I was expecting a lot from this one, like you were, John, and it's really weird. Like going into this match, it kind of like the build to it. 2 weeks prior to it, we had that incident where Braun comes to the ring and he no-sells the suplex from Brock and destroys Brock. And then the following week, they have the split screen thing. Going into the match, that kind of like was a bit of a letdown going in for me, because I would have preferred kind of like a reverse. Not that I had a problem with what they did with the split screen. I actually enjoyed it. It just, I thought that should have been 2 weeks before, and then you have the physical confrontation leading in, and then the way the match was structured, I get it. It was very similar to the match prior with Samoa Joe, the singles match that he had, where Braun really pretty much dominated this match and didn't. I think
they just went in with the assumption that the big power moves would get over, and I don't think it was necessarily you look at and just criticize the layout of the match. It was just didn't connect with the people, and you can look at different variations of that. But I think with Braun in particular, this was just like he has a certain chemistry with Roman Reigns, and I think that everyone expected this to be just this giant demolition derby of a match, and it didn't translate as such, even with the pop-up from the German, the kick out of the power slam. They were doing a lot of big spots, but it to me never got out of first gear.
Yeah, it seemed to stall. Exactly, that's a good way to put it. It seemed to stall a little bit, and going into the match again, I don't know. You talk about connection and chemistry, and how Braun had great chemistry and still does have great chemistry with Roman Reigns. By the same token, you take Brock and his limited interactions with someone like a Roman Reigns. They seem to have good chemistry as well. The two meshings of the two giants, the beast versus the monster, just didn't seem to click.
Yeah, and I mean, we're literally Monday morning quarterbacking
of course,
but when you do, like John Cena and Roman Reigns, that was like if they were to have a match at WrestleMania, that's probably close to the match they would have laid out. You had this big post-match scene where he endorses Roman Reigns, and to the live audience, I'm sure there were people there that are thinking, was this the end of John Cena? And that was a pretty big moment on the show. Do you look in hindsight that maybe, given how that match was structured as compared to the main event, that you could have flipped the two positioning? I know you like to end with the title match, but to me it was Cena and Reigns, they were leaving you on such a big note, and this almost retirement tease, which it's not, but to the live audience, that's kind of how they probably digested it.
Yeah, it seems to be a pattern now lately with the WWE. If you think back to WrestleMania with The Undertaker, which, leaving the gloves and the coat and the hat and the ring obviously signified to a lot of people that was,
and that's fresh in people's mind watching this with Cena. That
exactly.
If you don't know any better, you may think maybe this guy is done.
Yeah, and so, but they left the door open. Many constant references to the Undertaker. Is he done? Is he not done? They put that question in people's minds. John Cena, same thing last night. There's that question now. Is John Cena winding down his career? Is that match last night with Roman Reigns, is that kind of part of his retirement tour, kind of now, filling out his bucket list of guys he's going to help elevate. Because that was the idea of this match, was to help elevate Roman Reigns. And you can debate whether it did it or not. I think it was actually a good match. Mm-hmm. Of the two that were the main focus, this one was the one that really delivered. People will complain that it started off really slow, but I think that was by design because it was going to build to that ending, which was white hot. And talking to someone who was actually there at the building, they said, they texted me and said, this crowd is hot as F.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so.
The big hot as F
Hot
text.
as F. Yeah.
Just capping off the main event. At this point, I mean, Brock, I don't believe will be doing the TLC show.
Right.
Where do you see him coming back? Do you see that Survivor Series, or do you think we don't see him till Rumble time?
No, I think you have to bring him back for Survivor Series. Mm-hmm. You got to bring him back at some point before the Royal Rumble, I think. Who's next for him? There's got to be somebody to bridge that eventual road to WrestleMania with Roman Reigns, which still seems to be the plan going forward.
It felt after this show that Lesnar and Reigns, like, there's no more obstacles. Like, from just a pure, like, if this were legitimate, like, what more? Roman Reigns beats the perceived top guy. Mm-hmm. What do you do now till WrestleMania? I think you've essentially, these two have to be next for one another, but they can't unless you're really out of your mind.
Right.
So to me, with Lesnar, it's like you're looking at the Raw roster, and yes, there's the Finn Balor option, which I think you do have to do a bit with Finn at that point.
Yeah.
Or you look at Survivor Series as your interpromotional pay-per-view, and you can use someone off of SmackDown. I think those are your only options at this point with Brock in terms of a bridge before getting to the Reigns program.
See, and that was the problem going into this No Mercy pay-per-view and giving everyone Braun versus Brock so soon. This probably would have been better served as the final obstacle for Brock Lesnar to keep the title going into WrestleMania.
Yes. This felt like a pay-per-view that could have been the Rumble or the February pay-per-view, the last stop before Mania, and here you have Reigns and Lesnar as the two dominant forces coming out of this show. Their finishes were the most protected on this show, and the collision course is set up. So that's what this show felt like by the end. Now, moving to John Cena and Roman Reigns, they had a much longer match than Lesnar and Strowman. As you mentioned, it started off very slow, and then we got into the big spots. We had the spear through the table where Roman looked like he was almost paralyzed.
Almost spiked himself. Yeah, that looked nuts.
And then we saw Reigns kick out of 3 different AAs, including the Super AA, Jimmy. Right. So I guess now it's not so much of a Super AA anymore.
No, it's probably just a lowercase AA now.
Hey, that's it.
But and I get the complaints about that, and I'm also one of those people who don't like the multiple kick out of certain people's finishes. But by the same token, in the context of the match and in the story being told, it all depends. Like, you are more versed in the New Japan world than I am. I am a fan of New Japan, don't get me wrong, but I just, you cover it for a living. I don't. So when you go back to the first Kenny Omega-Okada match, it's kind of similar in the sense that Kenny, how many Rainmakers did he kick out of? A couple. Right?
Oh, in the first match it was a few.
It was a couple. But they protected the one-winged angel.
Yes.
It never got to hit it, which means that was protected, so Okada didn't kick out of that. I think in a certain sense, that was similar what we got here. It was, Roman Reigns digging down deep and kicking out of the attitude adjustment several times and really protecting.
He was also separating Roman Reigns from every other person that has kicked out of the AA. Right. That he was set apart and making it clear Roman Reigns was better. He won the match. He won it clean. He won it with the spear. That his spear was the most. It was the spear and the F5 were the stories of this show, and this collision course down the road between the two. So I thought this turned into a very good match between the two. Cena throughout this run since he's come back from July, I think it's pretty evident that his body is hurting. Yeah. I think this is the best match he's had since he's come back, which has not been a stellar series of matches he's had from the Baron Corbin program into this. I think you can definitely see that wear and tear and whatever he's dealing with. So Reigns gets the win. I just look at the timing of all of this, and granted, you're it's very difficult when you have Cena with all these projects. It's not as though you just have this open calendar to book ideal programs, but to see them do kind of a copy of what they did over the span of 2 years with The Rock and Cena, condensed into 4 weeks, complete with the endorsement.
Yeah.
Like, I had whiplash from the promos they're cutting to hear Cena's praising this guy and lifting his arm up. To me, it was just like you're cramming so much into 4 weeks that there's no way people can process this to the degree you want them to.
Right, and again, you know, one of my biggest complaints is rushing everything.
Yeah,
and this, exactly like you said,
like, this was a major program with your 2 perennial top guys, and to do this, like, think about the day after SummerSlam, these 2 were never linked. It was it was the week after SummerSlam this started.
Right. See, and it's kind of like you have this, like you said, the 2 top guys that they're pushing right now. This was a program that I think needed to go through maybe 2 or 3 pay-per-views at least, you know, to tell that entire story. And condensing it into a Reader's Digest condensed version just didn't help it, I think.
Like, how would we have been? Like, look at the summer for Cena. He comes back, he does that throwaway flag match with Rusev, does a throwaway Baron Corbin match at SummerSlam. I just look at the makeup of things, and the SummerSlam card, granted, Reigns was in a fantastic 4-way, but you're trying to keep him separate from Lesnar. Like, this could have been SummerSlam, Cena and Reigns, and you keep Reigns away from the title match and Lesnar, because the whole match was to essentially protect Reigns. He's in this match, but you don't want to give away the big match.
Right.
And Cena was in a nothing match at SummerSlam, and this could have been easily the number 2 match, and to some it would be perceived as the number 1 match. In front of that Brooklyn crowd, I would have done that, and even get a 2-match program out of it where he could have done August and September, and at least then you have the summer to build it up, and you have this at the end of things, and you feel like it's more of, still I feel it's rushed, but that at least you do get 2 matches out of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It just, again, it felt like a Reader's Digest condensed version of an entire angle that could have gone on for several months.
Now, the 2 guys to draw the short end of the straw was Neville and Enzo, who got sandwiched in between this, which, man, I thought these guys just were put in the death spot. And then it was a match laid out where Neville took 99% of the match and then got kicked in the balls, and the guy kicking him in the balls is your new Cruiserweight champion, Enzo.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm not, is Enzo a babyface or is he not a babyface? I don't get it. And if this is what a babyface is in 2017, you know, no, thank you. I'm not digging it. If this is leading to him becoming a heel, then I totally understand it. But if it's not, if it's trying to be a rebooted 2017 version of Lie, Cheat, and Steal to get over, it doesn't work, because when Eddie did it back in the day, it was endearing. It was fun. It was, you know, you can invest in Eddie Guerrero. You can enjoy his character, whereas Enzo is just an annoying piece of you-know-what, and just that doesn't work. If that's where you're going, if you want to keep this guy a babyface.
Just in terms of, like, I wasn't a big fan of the match. Nope. I don't think it's a great, just the booking alone, I think this just, it further hurts this Cruiserweight division. I understand that it's just, hey, we're throwing things against the wall. Enzo's a different character that people are into. But to me, I don't think this really invests people to tune into 205 Live if they hadn't already. It just feels like a division that is, this felt, I won't say as bad as when WCW was struggling with their once prominent Cruiserweight division and they put the title on Oklahoma, Ed Ferrara. But this felt close to that playbook where it's just, well, we've given up on what was the enticing part of the Cruiserweight division that they had coming out of that great tournament last year, and now it's just, let's get it on an entertaining character. Yeah,
because it's that mindset where, okay, kids seem to like this guy. He seems to connect with that audience, which is really a major target for their audience. At the same time, I'm just not in. I'm not into it at all. You know, the thing about 205 Live, which full disclosure, I would like to watch it more than I do, but sometimes I can't. But there are some compelling characters. I like the Drew Gulak character and what he's doing right now. I like other characters. Neville has been fantastic.
Dude, Neville to me is like he's been the shining spot of that division.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that I feel just because of the overall failure of that division, his character will get overlooked. But he's been one of the best performers in the industry this year, in my opinion. Yeah,
absolutely. But it's just, again, the perception of 205 coming out of the tournament, people's expectations, and now trying to reinvent the wheel. I mean, they just should have left it the way it was and let it run its course, man.
The eventual legacy of this division may be a new term into the pro wrestling vernacular, and I know you'll like this, Jimmy, because I always love puns. That Enzo is starting to display signs of Zoe heat.
Zoe heat.
So write that one down, Jimmy.
You know what?
Spread it to the masses.
You know what? That might end up on the Monday night tweet.
It's all yours.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I give credit. I give full disclosure to whoever comes.
Jimmy's a professional.
Yeah.
Let's go to some positive stuff from the show. Raw tag title match. I thought this was the best match on the show. Probably not the best night of Cesaro's career, but man, this guy just powered through.
Jeez.
After his teeth were shattered, taking that spot into the post. He was catapulted into the corner and then dove over to take the spot into the post and just cracked his teeth. And as Jason Agnew said on The Law, for those questioning why people like Shinsuke Nakamura or Kurt Angle wear mouth guards, this was the answer to that question. This looked brutal with his teeth. And the guy went another good, what would you say, 12, 13 minutes?
Easy, yeah.
And didn't seem to take any time out of the match. He was there for all his spots. I mean, all credit to the guy.
You got to. He's I guess what you would call old school tough. Just grinning and bearing it. Oh man, it just look. And if anybody's ever had a tooth not completely knocked out, one that's like broken in half, the searing pain that goes through your skull when that happens is intense. And now you got to picture him, powering through that match, taking bumps, while this pain must be like just
power bombing Rollins off the turnbuckle.
Great spot.
That was the highlight of the maybe the highlight sequence of the show was this white noise into a super power bomb after Cesaro blocked the top rope Frankensteiner. I mean, this sequence was great.
Okay, and again, for all the complainers out there, Ambrose kicked out, did he not?
He did kick out of this.
Oh, come on. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't have a problem with it, just like I don't have a problem depending on the context and the story.
This was
a great, phenomenal match. I mean, when you talk about trying to resurge the tag team division and going into this match, I wasn't digging Ambrose and Rollins too much as a tag team because, as you said last in our preview, Dean Ambrose going into goofy Dean Ambrose doesn't resonate well. I like the guy. When they were trying to reform the tag team and Seth Rollins was trying to recruit him and he was being not really lunatic, but just angry Dean Ambrose, confrontational Dean Ambrose. That's the Dean Ambrose I like. That being said, this tag team match worked and you had two teams out there that felt like actual tag teams.
Exactly. And that's what I've liked about Rollins and Ambrose is that sometimes you'll see guys just thrown together and they're still working matches with that singles mindset.
Yeah.
These two we are working a tag match, which is completely different from our singles matches and incorporating different tag spots and the whole psychology that you can explore with a tag match that makes it fun that I think they've really excelled at. So this was match of the night for me. Now, an interesting part, we have Ambrose, Rollins, and Roman Reigns all coming out as victors, and James McKenna, who writes for Pro Wrestling Sheet, he was the one to report on Sunday night that the current plan is for the Shield to reunite at TLC. We're talking before Raw, but during the segment with Angle and Miz, he did subtly throw in that line about addressing Reigns' plans with his former buddies. So it was subtly dropped in there, and I figure we'll know for sure on Monday night. Do you like that option? Should they go with it with a Shield reunion? Which it seems to be now the new mindset for these pay-per-views is to just come up with big ideas for every show to have something significant on it.
Yeah, it's interesting because you figure who could they realistically go against in a 6-man tag. You got to look at the Miz in the Miztourage.
Possibly.
I think that's a possibility because Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel could become a tag team to challenge for the tag team titles. Why not have Roman Reigns go after the Miz for the Intercontinental Championship? Remember here, WrestleMania 6, the big main event, Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior was champion versus champion with the WWE title on the WWF at the time, WWF title on the line. So it was the Intercontinental Champion facing the company champion, and why not have that at WrestleMania again? I think it could work.
Moving on, the fatal 5-way women's match. We had Alexa Bliss retaining over Nia Jax, Bayley, Sasha Banks, and Emma in a match that certainly exceeded my expectations. Lot of great stuff here, working in all 5 of the women. I thought they did a tremendous job of, again, it was kind of similar with when they had Roman Reigns in the 4-way at SummerSlam, was they want to get to Brock and Reigns. You have to have them interact, but save the match coming out of this. And while Alexa Bliss and Nia Jax isn't headlining WrestleMania, they did enough in this to keep Nia really strong throughout and keep that title match in the front and center.
Yeah, and trying to, in the structure of the match, trying to get Nia Jax eliminated from the match, it always took multiple women to get her.
Yes.
That crazy powerbomb spot on the outside, which was, big credit to Nia for taking that, because that's... yes, it's padded out there, but if you've ever landed on one of those wrestling mats in high school, yeah, it's the exact same thing. There's no give, but it was a really good match. Far exceeded expectations. It was definitely, they raised the bar. No pun intended.
Look at you.
No pun intended, but at the same time, because I know on the Law last night they were discussing who was the mastermind behind this match, and for me, Fit Finley's fingerprints were all over this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and big thumbs up to Fit.
Yeah, this was really well put together. I will ask you this, Jimmy. What do you think was Bayley needed in this match?
Absolutely not. It's almost like
it almost felt like we want someone to take the fall that we have no plans for, get Bayley in there.
Right.
And she just was thrown into this, took the fall. And I mean, I think it's really unfortunate what has happened to Bayley during this run. But she just, I don't know. It was just, she was thrown into this. I mean, it's...
I think maybe the mindset was, again, trying to understand their thought process behind it. Going into the match, technically having 3 heels versus 1 babyface women in the match, because Emma's a heel, Alexa's a heel, Nia Jax, I guess, is pretty much a heel. And then you got Sasha Banks, who's the only babyface in the match, maybe just to kind of sort of even the odds a little bit, but at the same, and maybe even plant that seed for Sasha and Bayley in the match, because they did have a little bit of a face-off, and also, broke up a few pins on each other.
Right.
So the seed is planted there if that's where they're going. But again, I agree with you. She was not needed in this match to still get to that same goal.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I really enjoyed this match. So this was my surprise on the show. I didn't think it was going to be bad, but it was certainly didn't have the level of expectation that it ended up delivering. Mm-hmm. Let's go with the Miz and Jason Jordan. This opened up the main show with the Miz retaining, and then Jordan cutting a promo afterwards, and especially during the entrances, very pro Miz crowd and not so much a Jason Jordan crowd. But the audience got into the match. I thought it was a decent opener, and felt like the feud's going to continue.
Yeah, it does feel like it's going to continue, and I feel bad for Jason Jordan. He's obviously very talented. He's one of those guys that needs to find his way on the microphone as well. But man, being thrust in that spot, as Kurt Angle's son and stuff like that, unless it's leading down the road, I kind of have a feeling that he's going to be frustrated with his pops.
I feel they've got to turn this guy. Yeah. And I think ultimately it should even be revealed he's not the son, because I think it's just going to be like the mark of death for this guy to get anywhere with this storyline. And I think a turn is inevitable, and I almost feel like the seeds are being planted. Like I don't feel... Like I don't think they are completely oblivious to this fact. This guy who is just so over the top and being presented like this that it feels the turn is the only conclusion to this.
There's no connection with the audience other than, and it's not the same kind of heat he's getting that Roman Reigns gets when he gets booed. It's a different kind of heat completely.
Yeah, it's like we're just not interested in any of this.
Yeah.
And then Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt, which I'll say
Match was good.
Match was fine. The match was fine. Finn wins. I don't know what that means for Bray Wyatt, the perennial lost character in this company.
It's almost like not Finn Balor, but Bray Wyatt has become the more character-driven SD Jones.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And that's too bad because I really enjoyed the character when he first debuted. I thought it was unique. It was different. His promo style was great. I think his promo style is still good, can use some tweaking and some growing and some evolving. But other than that, I just don't see where he's going.
What if it leads to now finally we get the reveal of Sister Abigail, who is Bray's older sister, and we get the return of a former 80s and 90s star and the introduction of Missy Wyatt.
Missy Wyatt, wow.
How about that?
That would be interesting. Hey, if you want to go off the board, I like that. Don't get me wrong.
I'm coming up with anything for this guy
because
he's just gone.
There is a candidate out there for Sister Abigail, and I know a lot of people have probably know where I'm going with this. She works at a different organization, who I think is
Rosemary.
Yeah, I mean, for her, I think to me she would be a perfect fit for this because not only could she be the side piece to Bray Wyatt, but she can also wrestle. I think it would be awesome. I mean, little tweaks in her character, and but I think that she would be a perfect fit for that.
Yeah, given how they've gone with her character, it could have been something for Nikki Cross, but I think she's so part of the Sanity act now, which I feel will eventually make its way to the main roster, that's where she'll be pegged to be.
Yeah.
But for Finn Balor, I mean, he won with the paint, he won without the paint. I don't know. I don't know what... With Bray Wyatt, I'm out of answers.
I was probably the last one to hold out hope for Bray Wyatt, and now I'm not holding out anymore. I don't know where you go with him from here.
And Elias beat Apollo Crews on the kickoff show.
I like Elias, but I also like the fact that they're taking their time with this guy. He's got.
I love the pre-match stuff. I think it's really catching on.
Yeah, exactly, and he's got something that connects with the audience, and it's working. But take your time. Don't do the Reader's Digest stuff.
So that was No Mercy. Thumbs in the middle show for me. How about yourself?
I agree. It was thumbs up until the final two matches. I think that's where it kind of let me down.
Yeah, Lesnar Strowman really disappointed me because I thought going in that was going to be something stellar, and it wasn't. So that was No Mercy. You'll be seeing a lot of us over the next month because we have not just Hell in a Cell coming up on October the 8th, but then just a few weeks later is the TLC event, which they announced will be Asuka's debut.
Oh, interesting.
So, do you put her in a title match right away?
No. I mean,
I don't like the debut in the title match. I think that she should just be in a... it should almost be her debut as the draw and just throw Emma at her.
Sure. And again, just have her build that winning streak again and
save the title match for something... Save us for Survivor Series or something like that.
You know what I'd like to see, again, forward booking and looking too far ahead. I'd love to see the women of Raw and SmackDown together at the Royal Rumble and finally do the Women's Royal Rumble match where the winner gets a shot at whoever the champion is of their respective brand at WrestleMania.
There you go. Jimmy Korderas, busy booking away. That is going to wrap it up. You can follow him at Jimmy Korderas. He is very interactive on Twitter, and you can catch the Law each and every week, Sunday nights, midnight Eastern, and go to liveaudiowrestling.com. We'll chat with you in October ahead of Hell in a Cell.